Yeah, my name's Jeff Bronze. I've known Mike since we were 15 and 16 years old, I being the 16-year-old. We met through skiing, and we've been friends ever since. He was a fierce competitor. He did not want to be second in kind of anything. When we began the season that was the Porsche face-off, 8 competitions in different areas around the Northwest, it was he and I who were clearly, one of us was going to win this thing. The very first and I'd been kind of winning the other little minor contests more than him. And the first one of the Snow Bust series that was the Porsche end result, when they announced me as second place, his name hadn't been announced yet, and he went, yes. And I did too, a little bit inside. Actually, significantly inside. I was glad to see that Mike was going to win one. Now, looking back, I'd rather it had been me, because the margin between the two of us in this overall series that year was very, very close. Mike won by 3 points out of, I don't know, maybe 50 or something like that, whatever the point scale was. And I got second place, which was a 2-week freestyle camp, someplace in California, might have been Squaw Valley. And in the meantime, I broke my leg and couldn't do that, so I sold the camp to somebody else. This was in the era before cell phones. I was at work, and after work I was doing a project for my father at his cabin, and I got there and he said, "Jeff, I have something to tell you." I'm thinking, who died? And it was one of those excruciatingly long moments where my mind doesn't know what it is. And it turned out to be a pretty bad thing. My best friend in life, who was the champion snow skier, is now paralyzed, and that sounds like a pretty dire result. And I was shocked, I was stunned, I was saddened, but I didn't really understand yet what that would mean. So when I finally was able to spend time with him at the hospital, I remember so clearly going in, and Mike, there was still a fire within Mike, the same old fire that made him a champion skier and made him want to be number one at all times. That fire was there. I held his hand, and he wouldn't stop, just kind of squeezing my hand a little bit. And I said, "Mike, it's all right. Save your energy." And so he relaxed that a bit. But he wanted me to know, just in that, because he was still almost pre-verbal at that time with all the medication. He wanted me to know that he's still in there, and he never went away. It's just a different Mike. And it's so wonderful to see that old Mike is back. He's got that fire. He's raging hard to be the best he can be, and he's certainly excelling in this new sport of his, the mono ski sport. He didn't let it slow him down. There was always a project. He helped a disabled veteran from the Iraq War who was a quadriplegic. He found funding to completely redo this guy's house. It was a very substantial makeover, and volunteer efforts for the manpower to make this thing happen. He created eco-friendly environment at his home, and then also went into business creating accessible living spaces for people whose circumstance in life has changed. Fierce, potent, invincible, unflappable, honest and true as a friend. And no one knows Mike like I do. Well, there are so many highlights from when Mike was a stand-up skier. One would be the 16-man backflip, which set Guinness Book World Record for the most people holding hands together. That was my year off, so I wasn't there. I had broken my leg and was body surfing instead. That wasn't as damaging to my leg as skiing would have been. I wasn't there for that, but that was a great moment. Together, Mike and I, we would build a jump right in front of the lodge at Alpental, and we kept that jump manicured all season long. And we would do what we do, I mostly backflips, some fronts. Mike would do his backflips, some fronts, a lot of front flips, and his signature move, the Vowelsicopter, which he named not necessarily for himself, but because what he thought he would call it didn't match the rules of competition. It's not a true Daffy, it's a helicopter with a Daffy, so he called it the Vowelsicopter. Not for ego as much as for clarity. And we were right in front of the lodge, and it was enjoyable for patrons and friends to just after skiing be up in the balcony and watching us do our thing. There's this thing, a non-sanctioned, non-sponsored event called the Slush Cup at Mount Baker on the 4th of July. There's a natural slush pond or a water pond there and still snow around. And we would go build a jump beforehand, and then we and others would jump into the water and do tricks and stuff. And there was, I saw Warren Miller broadcast something on ESPN one time late at night, and it's me going off the thing as part of what I just happened upon on television. And I do my backflip, and Warren Miller goes, no brain, no pain. And so there's probably some footage on Warren Miller's cutting room floor somewhere of us doing that stuff up there. Well, first let me say that there's really nothing quite like taking off from the snow and being weightless for however long it is. That beginner that just takes the tiniest little jump and feels that charge, that's what I felt. That's, I'm sure, what Mike felt first time he found air. And once we found it, that was the place we wanted to be. And then it was the bigger the better, and working the tricks into it. We were inventing it as we went. There wasn't really anybody there with me and Mike to say, oh, do this, do that, build the jump this way. We just did it the way it seemed to be working. And it brought attention and interest from others, which it was a nice sidelight to the whole thing. Today, it's really a different sport, and the way people get into it, I think it has to be coming from a different place. Certainly there's the passion, the love. They've all, I'm sure, found their first air, had that aha moment like Mike and I both did, but you need training. What they're doing is crazy scary. I went to the men's finals at the Olympics in Vancouver to see it, and I had great seats, and I got scared just watching them practice to find the correct speed going down the in-run. To see how fast they truly go, I was just nervous. And as soon as I saw them go and do, full, double full, which is 3 flips and 4 twists, oh, okay, they can do it. They can do it. And they land it every time, and if they just a teeny bit off, they miss the podium. They're all so good. So it's a different sport today, but I think it germs from the same sense of passion and excitement that can be derived from catching air. It's more than any one thing that's happening. It's more than this event of Mike coming back to skiing. It's more than his and my friendship together and sharing this event. It's a community of people who care a lot about what they do. Each of us knows there, but for the grace of God, go I. And the love that has exuded from so many people for the period of this week and even the period of the year leading up to this week has really been amazing. And I've grown to love Mike more. I've grown to love myself more. These folks that we have a history with, I haven't seen in 20, 30 years, that or longer. But it's like, because we went through what we went through, kind of defining what early hot dogging or freestyle might be, we have a kinship. and we respect each other. And one of the things that I knew would be fun, but I didn't know how fun it would be all the reminiscing, the stories, the kind of teasing one another about a fall or whatever. It's just been such a riot, and to hear somebody else's perspective of a particular thing has been a very enjoyable part of this that I didn't really anticipate as being that great. But then, we have Mike. He's our leader for this week anyway, and he just brings that out of people.
So Mike, could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mike Vowles. I'm 57 years old. I'm a championship level freestyle skier from the 1970s, one of the contributing pioneers to the sport of freestyle skiing. Back in 1985, 28 years ago, today, literally today, 28 years ago, exactly today, I hit a tree snow skiing, became paralyzed. And 28 years later, I'm back here in Sun Valley, and I'm learning how to ski again on a mono ski. Being part of freestyle skiing back in the early days, it was known as hot dog skiing, early on, and it was skiers on the hill that were seeking new, exploration as far as taking their skiing levels to new excesses back in the day of like Herman Goldner, Tom Leroy, the first guys that were out there doing somersaults and so forth. It became kind of a competitive thing between skiers, seeing who could come up with the next thing, who could come up with the next trick. I think that one of the things about freestyle skiers is you're showing off, and there's as much as I hate to say there's ego involved, it was all about doing things that got a lot of other people's attention. So not only did you get to compete with your fellow skiers and so forth, you were also out there in front of the public, in front of people, just doing new, innovative things that really got the attention of people around you and so forth. And so, but more than anything, it was competing against your fellow skiers to kind of see who could bring it, notch it up to that next level. So there was always that competitive spirit, and with freestyle skiing, there's always also that freedom that came along with. Just innovation and free thinking, and just getting outside the borders, getting outside of the framework of what people kind of think the limits of skiing was. It was always about exceeding those limits of what skiing was. And aerial acrobatics, that is what was my specialty back in the day. You've got ballet skiing, you've got your mogul skiing. I did all three events. But it was aerial acrobatics that I learned to excel at, and I did some pretty outstanding things back in my time. I've been in a Dick Barrymore ski film, some stuff that got shot here in Sun Valley during an International Freestyle Skiers Association back in 1974. So I was in a Barrymore film here. I was also in his film Winter Heat, which is a pretty well-known film. And it was shots of me competing, and Warren Miller. I'm in a Warren Miller ski film in probably 1975, and that was in the state of Washington at a ski area called Ski Acres, and we were doing a record-setting backflip. So we were able to do a backflip with 16 guys holding hands, and that was in a Warren Miller ski film. Stan Larson, we go back to the same timeline because my starting to compete in the sport of freestyle skiing when it was first starting to come up, when competitions were first being held. Stan Larson was a Seattle resident. He skied at Crystal Mountain. I was from the Snoqualmie Pass area at Alpental. Stan might have been, he might be maybe 5 years older than me. So he was a guy that was around way back when, and his nickname was Stan the Fly Larson. That was his nickname, the Fly. So we go way back, to probably about 1971, maybe 1970, 71. And he was one of those innovators, and he's a guy that's remained in the ski industry to this day, and now he's a filmmaker. And so it was just so terrific to have both he and Phil Sifferman show up here in Sun Valley over the last few days to come ski with me, because it's been 28 years since I got hurt, and so many years prior to that I even met these guys, way back when I was still in high school. Stan was just out of high school, so we've got a lot of history that goes way, way back. I started structured ski lessons at age 13. I was in the 8th grade, and so I took ski lessons in 8th grade, 9th grade, and started teaching skiing at age 15. During that time, I just had a passion and a love for just going up and skiing. I absolutely, was falling in love with the sport. And there was guys in our high school that were competing against one another, just kind of see who could do the next thing. And, and there was a guy named Larry Fry in our high school that he's a guy that set the standard amongst the guys that I went to school with, and he goes out and he does a front somersault. So when I find out that Larry Fry has gone out and done a front somersault, I wasn't there, but first thing I did was I say, okay, where did he do it? Up at Alpental where we skied. And so I went to the same, he was flipping off a cornice. So I went to the same cornice, flipped off that cornice, because it's like, there's no way I was gonna let that go. I had to do it too. And that was the bug. That was the bug. I did that first flip off a cornice, which is a cliff, and maybe this was 20 feet tall, something like that. So once that happened, then I started wanting to be able to perfect a front somersault, landing to my skis, skiing away, because this first one, it was me landing in powder, relatively safe thing. So from that point, me and my skiing buddies, we started building jumps. We started trying to figure out how to build jumping hills. It was all, we were winging it. We had no instruction, we had no coaching. It was just skiers out there that wanted to have fun. And so as we started doing somersaults, and for me it started as a front somersault, it took nothing to get out there and get some activity going, and before you know it, there's just crowds gathering around our jumping hill. Because back at that time, the things that we were doing were very exceptional. So it would be nothing on a sunny day just to have a packed crowd that would be staying around our jumping hill. And as people are skiing, that crowd was going to stay there at the same size. So that was one of those things that kind of fed into that whole freestyle skiing spirit. We're trying to perfect what we're doing, but we're always being, there was always the showmanship element of it, because there was always people there to watch, and you tended to kind of feed off of that. So then when I got to a point where competitions were starting to show up as the sport of freestyle skiing was first starting to come into its own, to then go to these competitions and compete against other guys like Stan Larson from other ski areas, it just I got the bug. I got the bug, and so over time, over a few years, I started to become a perfectionist at it. So having started with a front somersault, a couple years later, I'm eventually doing a full twisting front somersault that I could consistently land. And back at that time, there was maybe 3 guys in the world that were able to figure out that maneuver. So I was one of those guys raising the bar and setting a high standard back at that time. So as a freestyle skiing competitor, one of the things one of the events I was competing in the Pacific Northwest, you've got Rainier Beer and the Rainier Beer Snow Bust. And so there are these snow bus carnival type events that would go from ski area to ski area to ski area. So when I first graduated from high school in 1973, I'm all gung-ho. My goal was to go out and become a, professional freestyle skier. That's all I could think about. And so first year out of high school, the Rainier Snow Bus that always had jumping competitions, and you could win TV sets and skis and radios and that kind of thing. So first year out of high school, they're giving away a year's lease on a Porsche 914. So I set my sights on that. I'm rooming with Jeff Bronze, my best friend to this day. So and Jeff was an exceptional, gifted athlete, and he was the one fully expected to win this Porsche. He had the gift, he had the natural talent, and so I was competing against Jeff. But I was getting better. Jeff had the natural talent, but I had that work ethic. And so I'm pretty much starting to get to where I'm staying nose to nose with Jeff. We go off to a place called Silverhorn in Idaho, and I think in that event, I win the event. Jeff is second place. Next event, Krista Mountain, Jeff wins. I'm second place. So we're kind of nose to nose, and I've got to figure out a way to beat this guy. And so I just threw that freestyle skiing spirit and innovation and coming up with another bag of tricks, something I'm going to do. I came up with a jump where it was a combination of a 360, where I'm spinning 360 degrees upright, and then throwing in what's called a daffy move, where my skis are splitting in a, like the splits. And so all of a sudden I had the combination of these two things come together, and it just, it was, nobody else could figure it out. Nobody else could figure out how to do this thing I was doing without crashing. So I got dialed in on this thing, and it was almost like it was it had like an artistic element to it, like when you see ballet dancers springing up off the floor and doing incredible things. Nobody else could do this thing. So it was a helicopter daffy. I started scooting ahead of Jeff, and I found myself in a position where I had something where I can now start setting my sights on winning this Porsche better, because now I had a new, something in my bag of tricks. So I successfully won that Porsche, and it was because of my, what became known as the Valsicopter. But in that competition, competing for the Porsche, it was not known as a Valsicopter. It was this helicopter daffy, and it wowed the crowds, and everybody loved it. So it was when I came to Sun Valley here in 1974, and that year inverted aerials were not allowed, and it had to do with some serious injuries that took place. So the inverted aerials were not allowed. So bringing that jump here to Sun Valley, I really had a good chance of competing against some high-level guys nationwide, and and I could be in that top 10 easily. So end of the day, I ended up with 24th place here in Sun Valley, and I'm kind of scratching my head like, how can that be? How do I get 24th place with the stuff that I'm doing here? So I went to one of the judges afterwards, and I just said, "Hey, give me some help here. I do this jump, and and I would imagine I'd be, doing better in the standing. So tell me, as a judge, what is it you're looking for? What am I doing wrong?" And so they explained to me that, with me calling it out as being a helicopter and doing a daffy, it wasn't just, it wasn't that clear that I was doing a daffy, because it was more of an art form kind of a thing. And every time I did it, the jump was always slightly different, but it was incredible to watch, but it was more of an artistic thing, and but it wasn't truly a daffy. And so then I went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming next for the next competition. And so there I just said, okay, in my flight plan, you've got to, let them know what you're going to do. I said, I'm doing a Valsicopter. So I do my Valsicopter, and I went from 24th place doing the same exact jump, and now I'm coming in 6th place. So I'm within the top 10 of competing against the best guys in the United States. And so the name Valsicopter was born as a way to, be judged differently, because nobody could tell me how to do my own jump. It's just mine, and I'm the only one doing it. So the day of my accident is today's date. It was March 24th, 1985, on a Sunday, as today is also a Sunday on the anniversary of that. I was actually scheduled to not be on the hill that day. I've got a log house that I built, and that day I was scheduled to be on my property. A portable sawmill was going to be brought out, and I was going to be sawing logs into lumber with a guy. And he called and canceled the night before because we had rain in the forecast. So my buddy Dennis, who's here in Sun Valley today, he calls me up and says, "Hey, you want to go skiing tomorrow?" And it's like, it was a no-brainer. And I said, "Yep, I'll go," because my commitment was gone. So I went skiing with him that day. So it was a sunny day, spring day. We had some fresh snow, just a beautiful, wonderful day on the hill. People that are here in Sun Valley right now that were on the hill with me that day include Mike Burris, Bob Mooney, Debbie Stotzenberg, Al Osborne, Dennis McCormick, who I drove up with that day. So it was just another wonderful day at Alpental. I've got my wonderful, skiing peers, friends that are on the hill around me. Sometimes we'd all be together. Sometimes we'd, be breaking into smaller groups. But when I got hurt, there's a run called Side Slip Shoot. And it's called Side Slip Shoot because, most people side slip it. And to describe the terrain, it's a very steep, fairly narrow chute. It's about maybe 25 feet wide. On the left-hand side, you've just got towering cliffs above you that kind of have a daunting effect. To the right, it drops off to the right, and you've got forest. And so side slip chute. The guys that I ski with and the way I skied it is we'd just ski straight down that thing at a high rate of speed, and it was one of the most challenging runs on the mountain, one of the most dangerous runs on the mountain, and it's one of the runs that the guys that I skied with, we skied it the hardest and the greatest, and it was one of those runs where you ski it well and you're going to go home with a great day. So when I got injured, Debbie Stotzenberg, Al Osborne, Mike Burris, Bob Mooney, we were all together, and when we approached Side Slip Shoot, it was Bob and Mike that were with me, and we got a little bit ahead of the group. So Bob and Mike skied down first, and so they're waiting at the bottom of the hill, and then they're waiting for me to come down. So at the top of the chute, as I start my my drop into Side Slip Chute, rather quickly I hooked a right inside edge, and when I did, it took my right ski and it rose it up and it put it behind me. So when that happened, instead of heading down Side Slip Chute where I was intending to go, it started pulling me toward the forest. So now I'm moving in the direction of the forest, and I'm doing what's called a high-speed recovery on one ski. I've done it a million times, and this was the time where I was pretty much out of nickels. The sand in the hourglass was gone. It was no longer my moment to be able to pull out of it. So, I'm heading toward the forest, and I actually, recover. As far as my high-speed recovery, I get both of my skis back underneath me, but I'm going faster and faster. Now the terrain starts dropping out from underneath me. So it wasn't like I was flying off a cliff, something like that, but the terrain just starts dropping off out from underneath me. So I'm seeing myself coming straight on to a tree that's maybe 8 to 10 inches in diameter, but I'm heading straight for that tree. So, and it was one of those moments where you kind of get into that slow motion effect, because as I'm coming at that tree, I'm thinking to myself, I'm talking to myself, and it's happening so fast, but I got time to talk to myself, and I'm just pretty much saying, this is gonna hurt. But, I'm just thinking, I'm going home sore from this one. But as I'm heading toward that tree, rather than take it head on, I started turning my head to the left, because if I turn my head to the left, it's going to rotate my body. Wherever my head goes, my body's going to go. And I know that because I was the champion guy at doing 360-degree spins. So, but I can't change my trajectory. That I don't get to influence. But by turning, I didn't take the tree head on, but I took it in the back. I pretty much took it square in the back. And when I did, I'm maybe 4 to 6 feet off the ground. So I'm not skiing when I hit the tree. I'm airborne when I hit the tree. And it was the trunk, it was, I wasn't going into branches. I was going into the trunk of the tree. So I took it in the back, and my vertebrae burst at the level of about what I tell people is about my sternum level. So my vertebrae burst. So there's the first trauma. Then the next trauma is me with a burst vertebrae. Now I'm dropping to the snow. So now I've got that's kind of that second trauma. And I landed upside down, or when I shouldn't say I landed upside down. Once I hit the snow, I'm on very steep terrain. So I just found myself lying on the snow, upside down in a very steep situation, and I know I've paralyzed, I've broken my back. There's no question in my mind, that's what I've done to myself, and I know that. So I'm hanging upside down, and one of the first people to me is Debbie Stotzenberg, who's here today on the mountain, and because Bob Mooney and Mike Burris, they're down the hill looking up. And so Debbie arrives on the scene, and I just said, Debbie, I've broken my back, I'm paralyzed, and I need to get turned around. I can't stay upside down like this, because I'm certain I would have died had I stayed upside down. I couldn't, with the blood rushing to my head, with the trauma to my body. So then so I tell her, I've got to get turned around. So by that time, Mike Burris, Bob Mooney, got up the hill to me, and I told them, you turn me around, guys. I can't take my skis off. I can't stay like this. So there's that third possibility for trauma to one's body, because you're not supposed to move anybody with a spinal cord injury, but it had to happen. And I'm sure it hasn't had any more ill effect. I already done the damage. But they got me turned around, and so then it became that waiting game where the patrol gets notified, ski patrol gets notified, and I am just in excruciating pain, and all I know is pain. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking I can't walk. I'm not thinking I can't feel my legs. All I know is just extreme pain, and I just want to get off that mountain, and I'm hoping I'm going to get helicoptered off that mountain, which turned out that wasn't the case. So I had to go down, in an ambulance. So then one of the first guys upon the scene that is here in Sun Valley right now is Bill Sokolich. So he's joining me for my return to skiing, and he was one of the first responders. And so, and this starts the conversation about the impact on other people's lives, how hard this was on everyone for me to get hurt like this. Bill Sokolich is a guy that, maybe he's 5-6 years older than me. And he watched me grow up at Alpental from age 14. He watched me develop into a freestyle skier of a championship level. And Bill gets the call, and he finds out who he's going to help, who he's going to get off the mountain, and then I'm paralyzed. And so after that, it was a matter of getting me down in the toboggan, and all I knew was pain. And and it was Debbie who rode down in the ambulance with me. And it was just nothing but pain. That's all I knew. I couldn't even go anywhere else in my mind. All I could do is just try and manage that pain. So once we got to the hospital, to the emergency room, they had to do the x-rays and all that kind of stuff before they could finally put me on morphine or whatever they put me on. And during that time, I had some internal bleeding going on, and they don't know what the source of that is, but there was concern that I might have ruptured my aorta. So this being back in the days where there's no cell phones, that kind of thing, Debbie is there all alone because everybody else is following behind, coming down, to join us at the emergency room at the hospital. So then Debbie gets approached by the chaplain, So all of a sudden, here's poor Debbie there with Mike, going through all that, and and they're talking to her like, this might not go well. He might not. We don't know if he's going to survive. And luckily, within half an hour or so, she got the good news that I had ruptured a lung, and so bleeding was coming from a source different than my aorta, and I was going to live. So there you are. There's that piece. So when when it happened, when I became paralyzed, I did physical therapy for 4 solid years, and I was hell-bent on beating paralysis. I was absolutely certain I was going to be able to put forth the energy, and I was going to be the guy that was going to beat those odds. And the surgeon that worked on me, to this day, I'm thankful that, the way he said it to me is he said, Mike, you got a 1 in 500 chance of walking again. And to this day, I thank that man. His name was Howard King, and I thank that man for saying it like that, because I just said, good, I'm going for it, as opposed to the guy just saying, you will never walk again. I think that would have been inappropriate. I like the odds he gave, and I give it 4 solid years, and then I finally got to the point where I just said, this is bigger than me. I'm done. I can't do that. But through that time, all that energy, all that effort, all that intensity, all that discipline, it gets transferred into other things in the rest of my life. So, it was time well spent, and it was my way to do it, because I had a lot of resistance from, the therapy community, the doctors, thinking I was, wasting my time and maybe causing an ill effect to myself of not accepting it. It was just my way. I needed to know at the end of the day, when I stopped my effort, that it was me. It was not, I couldn't just take that standard, I couldn't be, what's the term, status quo. I couldn't just say, okay, if you say so. I had to know on my own terms, this is unbeatable. And when I did that, that was my way, and it was the best way. And then I was able to move forward, and, the first thing I did was, go back to finishing the construction of my home and so forth. With respect to skiing, the choice I took is, skiing was a perfect thing I did. It was a love of my life, and I just put it up on a shelf, put it in a crystal case, and I just said, it's perfect, that's it, that chapter's over, and I'm not going to ever ski again. I have to finish this thing right now being perfect. And and so the idea of coming back and skiing differently in any different fashion, the whole mono ski thing, it was in its cruder form, just beginning at that time, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I don't think it was from an egotistical standpoint. I just, I had something perfect, and I wanted it to stay that way. So for 28 years, that was my position. Periodically, somebody would approach me about, have you ever thought about the mono skiing, Mike? I see guys up the hill, and it's, and I would always say, hey, I am, I've got to just say I'm impressed, and I say more power to those people. That's just not, that is not my way. That's just, what I did. I need to leave it. I need to always reflect on its perfection. So that went on for, maybe about 26 years. And about two and a half years ago, I started suffering depression. And when I started suffering depression, I knew, man, something's terribly wrong. Because I'd never ever experienced depression. But now I know I was probably always just 5 steps away from depression all that time. But I always remained, in a good state of mind, but I also was living excessively with everything I did in my life. I put excess into everything, and that is it is a side effect of a traumatic experience, and that was one of my coping tools. But eventually, something happened, and the depression set in. So I started working with a psychotherapist to get to the bottom of what is that, because I was sick, and I needed to get to the root of it. And get it taken care of. So through that whole process, I started learning a lot about myself. I started learning a lot about this traumatic event. And so through that process, I started becoming more open and available to the possibility of returning to skiing. So it was a slow kind of a process. And one way I've come up with this story that I've told a few people, and that story being that when I got hurt, 29 years old, peak of my physical, prowess, my skiing skills. When I got hurt, I had an out-of-body experience, and that skier inside me rose up and left. But he didn't come back down into me. Instead, that skier traveled into the future, looking for when the time is right. So 26, 27 years later, when these changes started happening and the depression set in, I started doing the therapy, my story is that skier, was waking me up and saying, it's time. And that out-of-body experience, that skier's back. That skier came back. I'm whole and I'm complete again because that skier has been my core. So that's just the way I tell that story. So I refer to myself as being a time traveler, and because now being back skiing, the sit ski has developed. So you've had all this hard lifting over the years. So when I come back, I've got the advantage of all these people that have done all this hard work. The equipment's better, the shape ski has an influence on it, the ski hill grooming is different than it ever was. I've never worn a ski helmet. So all of these things are so different, but now that I'm back, it's like it happened just yesterday, and I feel very much as though I'm right on schedule. And when people have talked about, Mike, hey, do you wish you'd done this earlier now that you're here? No, this is my time. I'm on schedule. I'm supposed to be here now, and it's perfect. It's perfect again in the strangest sort of way. It's perfect again, this experience that I've had over this last week and just kind of where I see things going now. Yeah, the first day over at Dollar Mountain, I'm skiing on the chair called Quarter Dollar, and it couldn't have possibly been more, intimidating, intense, me feeling vulnerable. I'm learning to ski a different way. I'm taking ski lessons. I'm the beginner student from day one. And now I have to find out how to use my body with the lower part being paralyzed. I don't have feeling. I don't have sensation. So there's so many things that I don't have to give me feedback from the snow on up. So it's been one heck of a very difficult, daunting challenge this week. Let's see, today being Sunday, I think this is going to be like the 8th, this will be the 7th day of my ski lessons. So it's gone real well, but difficult. I hate to use the word frustrating, but it's in there, and it's been one heck of a challenge, and I guess vulnerability is the word I like to keep coming back to, because to have gone from who I was as a skier at one time, and then to return in this situation where I'm going to take on this task of learning to ski again differently in a mono ski. The greatest thing that has come out of this week is, my male friends, but also Debbie Stotzenberg, being with me and catering to me, doting over me as they're part of my support group with the mono ski. And just the amount of hands-on experience I've had with these friends that are so protective of me while I'm really vulnerable. And this last week, it's like jokingly we talk about these guys being like my pit crew, helping me clean off my ski goggles, helping me get buckled in this thing, keeping me from tipping over. And all the while, I've constantly got people's hands on me. People, riding up the chairlift. Somebody's always holding on to me without me asking. It's like I'm being protected by these people, and that has been this incredible human experience I've had with my best friends. And one part about this time here in Sun Valley, it's a giant therapy session because there was so much hard crying that took place 28 years ago that was grieving, and there's just a lot of crying going on around me right now that is joyful tears of celebration. And so this trip to Sun Valley has been unbelievable as far as how well I've done on the quickness of my developing the skills. So I'm really feeling very good about my return to skiing. And the people factor and just the love that surrounded me, it's unimaginable, and it's just off the charts. Yesterday was, an untethered day for me where Mark Mast, my mentor, my coach, my ski instructor, my new friend, he's unleashing me. And, and I'm kind of a high risk guy because I'm like that dog that's on that leash leaning forward and I'm getting back into that mode of coming back as a skier. And so yesterday, to reunite on the hill with 30 plus skiers from my past, it's a sunny day. I'm just enveloped by this group of people, this love. And so yesterday was one of the most incredible days for me as a newly born skier, a mono skier. It was so incredible because this week that I've been going through these lessons, I'm thinking, I'm stressing, I'm thinking, I'm stressing. I'm talking to myself about all these things that I'm being taught. Going down the hill, I'm talking out loud, and I keep talking to myself to try and get this information in my head, but also while I'm trying to have my body pick up and learn something new and start to use different senses to do this. So yesterday was a day where I was just out skiing on the mono ski, and I was giving no thought to anything other than I was just skiing. So when these 30 plus people, converged on the top of the mountain, they're there surrounding me, then we came skiing, and these guys are all behind me. It really just changed the dynamics. I was no longer thinking about how to ski. I was just skiing and at a high rate of speed, and the people power, the energy that I got from the group was just tremendous, and it was amazing how it affected me. And of course, it's amazing how it's affected them because, it's been quite a week for all of us. But yesterday, being untethered, skiing fast, wind to my face, incredible, just absolutely incredible. At this point, because I've imagined coming into this. I see these great skiers, mono skiers doing just great things of an incredible athletic level. And I've just imagined I'll probably do pretty good. I'll probably do pretty good. And and I would forecast and imagine, prior to this, that I'll be continuing this. But to be here now, to do what I've done, to having the learning curve being as short as it is, how well I'm doing now, skiing with my friends, the experience, getting back into that experience, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I am back, I'm a skier, and I am going forward as a skier from here, because that out-of-body experience, man, that skier, he's back. We are one again. And so my next step is to get my own mono ski, so that'll be my next goal. Get my own mono ski, get custom fit, and start this renewal process of me coming back into skiing and have it be a part of my life again, because it was always a core part of my life, just absolutely core. And that was one of the things that when I got injured, it was there's using the loss of the use of my legs and all kinds of other bodily functions that are screwed up from a spinal cord injury. That's all just devastating for anybody. And so for me, it was all of the losses that all guys would experience, or anybody would experience with a spinal cord injury. But the loss of my skiing core, because that's my soul, it's back. And so I've got this. I'm in a place where at age 57, I'm in great shape. I got a lot of good stuff ahead of me that gets to make my life bigger now. And I've led a big life. I've led a very good life, but it gets to be bigger now. And so it's so unbelievably exciting to now be on the other side of this thing. And it's, I feel like it's perfect, what's happening right now. It's just perfect. By default, I'm the guy that's considered the role model. I've always been the guy that, people look to and they're inspired by in this and that. Absolutely, because one of the things I want to do with this whole process is I want to be out, I want to be out doing public speaking. I want to be out sharing this documentary ski film. I want to be out helping and serving others that are in my condition or similar, because I've led a very good life as a paralyzed individual, and there are people out there, their hardships are greater than mine. So I'm hopeful that I can find ways to, not only, set the example, but also to try and raise money and do things on a nonprofit level to help people. And the more I get to tell my story, show my story, the more I get to heal. Because my story has been bottled up for 28 years, bottled up, and that's not a good thing. And so from here forward, I get to share that, release it, put it out there for others, and hopefully just create some sort of benefit from my disadvantage that I've had in my life. And so that's my answer. What am I going to do right now? In about an hour and a half, I'm going to be out there on that hill, and I'm going to be skiing. Today is kind of a loose float day where, we don't have any hard set things that we're going to be doing on the hill. There's still a handful of people still here that haven't left yet, because some people have been returning back to their, respective homes. So I'm going to be out skiing on the hill today. I'm hoping to take it, nice and easy. And it's like I ran into Jack Sibach last night, and he said he's going to be on the hill today. So I said, well, if I see you, it'd be nice if I could, take a couple turns with you. I get to say that. I get to say that to anybody. I'm on, let's meet up, let's do a couple turns. Wow. Today, I'm going to be skiing, and there's going to be different people out there, and I'm going to go take a few turns with them. And it's a very magic thing. It's a very magic thing. And this entire week that I've been here, it's like my buddy Jeff and I, we've been on a magic carpet ride. I mean, it just has been start to end. We've been on this magic carpet ride, and so much, has to do with skiing, and so much has to do with people. So this is a perfect week. Today will be a perfect day. Yeah.
It's been a very good day. It's oh man, I'm excited. I feel very rewarded. I feel very stimulated. I feel like I had a good day. I feel like I did a good job, and the finish was a lot better than the start. It just feels like I'm supposed to be here. It all felt natural. It all felt right. And not terribly overwhelming, I mean, considering it's been 28 years, this was just fantastic. Just fantastic.
And a key to that, this is probably the worst day on quarter dollar in 5 to 10 years as far as snow conditions go. And he did pretty good. Really good, especially considering the conditions. In the last few runs things were starting to click a little bit. And tomorrow we're going over the Lower River Run.
And my goal today was to go to Lower River Run tomorrow. So, yeah, that's a perfect day.
I think we're looking forward to tomorrow.